A very good morning, students, and welcome to the class. Students, today we will first discuss the dates of composition and publication of the Battle of Books. Students, there was a time lapse of about 7 years between the composition and the publication of the Battle of Books. The period of its composition was 1697-98. In The Bookseller to the Reader, we read, I quote, the following discourse, The Battle of the Books, as it is unquestionably of the same author, Swift, so it seems to have been written about the same time. I mean, the year 1697, when the famous dispute was on foot about ancient and modern learning. According to Smith and Guthkelch, the work appears to have been begun soon after June 1697 and completed around March 1698. In the year 1697-98, Swift was working as a confidential secretary and secretary to Sir William Temple, who, with his essays on ancient and modern learning, had performed the opening ceremony of the ancient modern controversy in England. Students, he was effectually rebutted by William Wotton, who was later joined by Richard Bentley, the librarian of King's Library. Charles Boyle and many other young Oxford wits came forward to support Temple's rather thin case. The resulting polemical activity caused much bitterness and ill feeling between the two parties. At that juncture, Swift, in his peculiarly droll but caustic manner, took upon himself to defend his pattern against the foul mouthed railing of Bentley and his darling Wotton. The result was Battle of the Books. Students, when the book begins, the bookseller informs us that the work was written in 1697 when the famous ancient modern controversy was raging high. Sir William Temple and Boyle were on one side championing the cause of ancients, and Bentley and Wotton were on the other, asserting the claims of the moderns. The books in St. James's Library took upon themselves to settle the issue by engaging in a battle. Students, the author in his preface refers to satire and warns shallow wits against inviting lashes from their superiors. Wars are generally caused by want and pride. The moderns started quarreling with the ancients on the plea that the ancients must vacate the higher peak of Parnassus for them. On the ancients' rejection of the moderns' claims, a war started. In this war, whole rivers of ink were employed. The author has recorded this battle impartially. Nobody knows which side was victorious. Both parties display the trophies, that is, the books of controversy. Such polemical books are haunted by disorderly spirits and must be isolated from the other books in the libraries. Richard Bentley, the librarian of St. James Library, obviously ignored this point and jumbled up the books in his library. The result was chaos. The moderns, whose number was about 50,000, prepared for a battle. Hot words were exchanged by the two sides. Students, the bookseller informs the reader of the date of composition of the book, the text that we are discussing. It was composed, he says, when the famous ancient modern controversy was raging. The author of The Battle of Books gives a true account of the battle between ancient and modern. He warns us, however, against mistaking the names in the battle for living human beings. It appears that Swift himself is impersonating the bookseller. In the preface of the author, we can see that Swift assigns a cause for the popularity of satire. General satire offends none because everyone thinks that all but him are the target. Students, the main discourse of this book can be divided into about six main incidents. Let us first discuss the first main happening of the book. The first incident concerns the origin of the battle between the ancients and the moderns, and the preparations made by the two sides for the battle in St. James's Library. This is obvious truth in Swift's contention that war is generally caused by pride and also by want. However, his illustration of this contention through the goings on of a republic of dogs is instinct with Swiftian humor. Swift here employs what may be called high burlesque, as distinct from low burlesque. He is when he assigns Mount higher place to the ancients, he is careful to award the higher of the two peaks to the ancients. We are introduced for the first time to the worthy Bentley as a person of great valor, but chiefly renowned for his humanity. Swift has a telling fling at him by presenting him as trying to knock down Phlaris and Aesop. Bentley is prevented from realizing his design by his own unhappy weight, especially a mighty pressure about his posteriors and heels. It is a good attack on his alleged pedantry and dullness. It reminds us of Swift's reference to that philosopher who, while his thoughts and eyes were fixed upon the constellations, found himself seduced by his lower parts into a ditch. We have also a glimpse of temple. Swift writes, this temple, having been educated and long conversed among the ancients, was of all the moderns their greatest favorite and became their greatest champion. Lastly, we may also refer to the fine equivalence of Swift establishes between books and men. It is by no means an easy task, but Swift accomplishes it very well. Students, the second incident that occurs between in the quarrel between the modern and ancient is that of the spider and the bee, and Aesop's interpretation of this quarrel. Students, we will continue with this main incident in our next class. Thank you very much.